you will open your copies of the scriptures to Proverbs 10. I joined the brothers that are going through Proverbs who have been faithfully teaching us wisdom through the Proverbs. And in chapter 10 marks a transition in the way that wisdom is being communicated to us. In Proverbs 1 through 9, there's cleaner flows of thought that can be read through across verses, right? Well, here, starting in chapter 10 all the way to 21, and maybe even further than that, we're seeing short, pithy statements. This is what is called, you can read it at the beginning, it says, the Proverbs of Solomon. Starting in verse 1, the Proverbs of Solomon. This is what has been called the Proverbs proper. When you hear the word Proverbs, this is what you think of. You think of these short sayings that are not short on impact. They have depth if you meditate on them. And they are no less God's wisdom, even though they're shorter. But when you're reading through them, because there's not a train of thought, it's kind of scattered, it might be difficult to receive as a whole, right? There's a thought an impression that I had when going through this, because I'm someone who does like a train of thought. It is hard for me to read. Sometimes what seems to be in the same verse, how do these two things relate? It does make you think, and I do benefit from having to sit and meditate. But because of these things, I want to provide some thoughts that might be helpful for you to receive these kinds of proverbs. Because of these things, there's a few ways to read Proverbs proper. One is you can go in and just select, as you're reading, there's some that may impact you. Memorize it. And then recall it, right? That's a way to receive the Proverbs. Another way is to, all throughout from chapters 10 and on, there's themes, right, that are scattered. Well, go in and find all of the verses that relate to this theme. Could be finances. This theme could be sexuality. This theme could be covetousness, whatever it may be, and meditate on those verses. But here's what I think is the most important way to receive. And it is receiving it as it comes to you as you're reading. Imagine, I put it down, I had to look it up. Whenever I was a kid, I had these binoculars that you push a lever and it flips a little disc, and in the image it's kind of like a 3D image, and it was really fun just to go through them all and then go put in another disc, right? Well, imagine the Proverbs like this, like you are looking at the righteous one and the wicked one. Something very important that you have to see, starting straight from the gate, is the word but. There's a series of constant contrasts being made. This, but this. this, but this, this, but this. It is constant for several chapters. And there is sprinkled some ands, some comparisons with using the word and, but it is important for us to see that it's like you're looking at the righteous one, and you get an impression. You're seeing this righteous one help the poor. Next, you're seeing the wicked one who steals from the poor. And that leaves an impression. The sight of that leaves an impression on what is good, what is favorable. How not to read the Proverbs is a list of do's and don'ts. Okay? Especially starting in chapter 10, we may see like 3 to 5 commands from chapters 10 to chapters 22. 3 or 5, I'm not sure. In the previous chapters, it is immersed with commands. Store up wisdom. If you get anything, get this, get wisdom. Don't forsake my instruction. All of those are commands, and they're littered throughout the first 9 chapters. But when you get to chapter 10, it's a little different. It's like you're seeing impressions. And it's painting a picture for you so that you can have a sense, so you can taste righteousness, so you can taste wickedness, so you can taste the ugliness of wickedness, and you can taste the goodness, the sweetness, the savor of righteousness. And really, it is no different than the first 9 chapters, because the first 9 chapters is a bunch of imagery and personification. Woman folly, and woman the righteous man. These personifications are imagery to leave an impression upon you. And the reason why is because where are the Proverbs, where is God's wisdom directed? Is directed to our hearts. Out of the heart are the springs of life, the issues of life. Right? There's a constant emphasis on the heart, the desire, what you store up inside, what comes out from the inside. And so the most important way to read the Proverbs is to let these impressions leave an impression upon you so that you can savor what is righteous and hate what is wicked. And so we'll start in verse 1. I'm just going to read through chapter 10, verses 1 through 16. And I do want to, it's called, that thing is called a Viewmaster, right? And I did have this note, and Christ is the one that you should be seeing as the righteous one, right? We're seeing in God's wisdom the righteous man described all throughout. The righteous one described all throughout is fulfilled in Christ. And the only way to know wisdom, just a little bit of review, going back, what's the beginning of wisdom? The fear of the Lord, the fear of God, right? Or the knowledge of the Holy One is the beginning of understanding. And so when we know God, and we know God's heart, what He desires, what He considers is favorable, blessing, fruitful life, then we begin to understand wisdom. And Christ, who was in the very bosom of the Father, became wisdom to us. He is the incarnation of wisdom. And another just note before we dive in is every day in front of us are happening Proverbs. Every day. We are constantly observing Proverbs every day in creation and in our relationships, in our own experience and the experience of others, the experience of others' successes and failures, the experience of our own. And it's important. I think that it's utterly important for us to be in a place of being still and observing and taking in. We'll see later on that it's the babbling fool that lacks understanding. But the wise are the ones who are able to take in commandments. In other words, there's a stillness, there's a receptivity, there's a sensitivity to what is God revealing to me in my own experience, in my own relationships, in my relationships with others. And here's a small application. Our children are constantly watching us. We are Proverbs to them. Our life, our decisions, our talk, what we talk about in front of them in the car rides, at home, is a constant teaching and a leaving of impressions upon them of what is good and what is wrong. I remember my dad. It was pretty routine that if he saw somebody on the side of the road, he's going to stop and he's going to help them. He's going to fix their car. He's going to spend a few hours, and I'm just, kind of, okay, Dad. And I lacked wisdom when I was young. But there was one specific moment where I tasted the goodness of of how my dad was. We were at Schlitterbahn. A man was going down this tube ride. He lost his keys, and we spent 2 hours looking for his keys. Some stranger, someone we didn't even know, lost their keys, and I endured a little bit, maybe like 30 minutes of helping, and as I was just watching my dad look for the keys, and this man who was like kind of distraught, he was looking for his keys, I saw the goodness of it. I felt compassion for the guy. And I later recalled that story to my dad. He didn't even remember it. It's not like he was counting, but that's just a picture of what it's like. What we don't even realize what impressions we are leaving on our children. And when we follow the path of God's wisdom, it begets wisdom. It begets fruitfulness in life, and it leaves an impact on our children's heart. And so let's start in verse 1 of chapter 10 and read through verse 16. And at the end of this, I intend to here's the flow, really. I'll just give it out to you. First, we're going to be talking about, after I read, the two ways. Remember, there's a contrast. The righteous, the wicked. Secondly, we're just going to go through the sets of verses, and I'm just going to give you just impressions that were left on me. And there's probably hundreds more that could be applications and thoughts. And that's why I want to leave the end open to y'all. So as I'm reading, pay attention, and at the end what impressions were left on you? How can we edify one another with what we're seeing from Proverbs 10? Verse 1. The Proverbs of Solomon. A wise son makes a glad father, but a foolish son is the grief of his mother. Treasures of wickedness profit nothing, but righteousness delivers from death. The Lord will not allow the righteous soul to famish, but he casts away the desire of the wicked. He who has a slack hand becomes poor, but the hand of the diligent makes rich. He who gathers in summer is a wise son. He who sleeps in harvest is a son who causes shame. Blessings are on the head of the righteous, but violence covers the mouth of the wicked. The memory of the righteous is blessed, but the name of the wicked will rot. The wise in heart will receive commands, but a prating fool will fall. He who walks with integrity walks securely, but he who perverts his ways will become known. He who winks with the eye causes trouble, but a prating fool will fall. The mouth of the righteous is a well of life, but violence covers the mouth of the wicked. Hatred stirs up strife, but love covers all sins. Wisdom is found on the lips of him who has understanding, but a rod is for the back of him who is devoid of understanding. Wise people store up knowledge, but the mouth of the foolish is near destruction. The rich man's wealth is his strong city. The destruction of the poor is their poverty. The labor of the righteous leads to life. The wages of the wicked to sin. So now do you see what I mean whenever I say it's like you're jumping to and fro? But again, with these contrasts, there is a spirit of wisdom. And I do think that there is you can draw a line of the heart and spirit of the righteous. In all of righteous acts, there is I believe, a constant spirit. And no wonder, because our God is one. And it is the Spirit of our God, the Spirit of wisdom. And also I do think that you can draw a line of that consummates and gives a summary and understanding of what is sin, what is wickedness. And so what we're seeing here is two contrasts, or a contrast between two things. And all throughout Scripture, this is what we see. We see contrasts. One of the most important words that helps us understand what the meaning of these verses are is the word but. It's because we're seeing two different things that are opposed to each other. There's no neutral ground. There's no neutral person in relationship to God. You are either on one way or the other. You are either on the path of life or the path of death, the path of righteousness, the path of wickedness, the path of wisdom, the path of folly and foolishness. More contrasts. Y'all tell me some. Light, darkness. That's the one that was right on my mind. Truth, lies. There's a lot. There's more.
Foolish and the wise.
Foolish and the wise. What else? Blessing and curse. Heaven and hell. Edification, building up. Destruction, tearing down. So we're constantly being given these two ways. Which way are you going to choose? Are you going to choose life or are you going to choose death? That's the end of the book of Deuteronomy. Choose life. Now, wisdom is being able to tell the difference. Wisdom, as we see in Genesis 1, is the knowledge of good and evil. But wisdom goes beyond that. Or you could say deeper than that. I don't want to say beyond that. It goes deeper than that. And in this way, it also helps us understand the difference between what is good and what appears good. What seems right. It helps us understand what is foolishness and what just appears as foolishness. It helps us it's like a sword. Remember Solomon, whenever he asked God for wisdom, and God blessed that prayer and commended Solomon for not asking for riches, not asking for a big kingdom and might, but that he asked for wisdom so that he could do justice, so that he could be fair in his dealings, so that the fruitfulness and life, kingdom life, would abound, so that the poor would be vindicated, the poor, the orphan, the widow. In fact, you can trace kingship and wisdom together throughout all of Scripture, from Genesis to Revelation. And why and the reason is because the king who is the one who is in a position of authority to make decisions, and those decisions have a ripple effect across all of the kingdom. And if you have a king that is unwise, they can be easily beguiled. They could easily have unjust suspicion. They can easily make decisions that start to bring cracks into the foundation of a kingdom, and then a kingdom is destroyed. And so wisdom is utterly important. Do you have children? Wisdom is important for you. Do you lead in some way, in some measure, whether it be at work, in church, in any of your relationships? Wisdom is important for you. Wisdom is for everyone. And so how do we tell the difference? How do we tell the difference between what is true and what only appears true, but is actually false? That anyone who doesn't have wisdom would easily slide into a falsehood. Here, and listen to some of these. How do we tell the difference when our busyness is either real diligence and good work ethic, or just selfish ambition? How do we tell the difference when our savings of our money is good stewardship or greed? How do we tell the difference between when we pay someone a compliment, is it flattery or is it real kindness? What about our laying down? Is it real good, wholesome rest, or is it laziness? You're giving away of your possessions. Is that genuine love, or is it neglect for the sake of false piety? Meaning neglect of maybe somebody else you should be giving, like your children, an inheritance. Is an example. What about every time you fill in the blank, check your stocks, check your bank account, check the cameras, check, is that your carefulness or is it just anxiety? How do you tell the difference? What about your corrective comment or suggestion to someone? Is it real love influence, or is it judgmentalism? Is you're saying something or not saying something because of your fear of man and sinful passivity, or is it your patience and gentleness? Is it genuine concern, or is it gossip? Is it being all things to all people, or is it compromising the values of God's kingdom? Is it boldness, or is it cruelty? Is it, studying and growing theologically sound, or is it getting more ammo for your weapons to destroy people? And the truth is as you can see, we can dress things up. We can act a way, put something over it, and make it look right. We can go out to the streets and preach boldly at people, and really what we're doing is we're destroying people. And we're taking out theological bats whenever someone comes up to us opposing. Are you having true joy in the moment, or is it trivialness and trifle? Is what you have is confidence and faith, or is it actually pride? Is it sorrow, or is it self-pity? Like, how do we understand the difference is the point. How do you cut through? Remember, after Solomon had prayed that and the blessing was given, Solomon had been given wisdom, the straight from out of that gate was a scenario where these two prostitutes come before Solomon. You remember that? And I love the fact that he said, bring out the sword. Because that sword was the sword of wisdom. It cuts, it divides, it distinguishes what is true and not true, what is light and darkness. And this is what we need, and this is what the Proverbs are giving to us. So, in verse 1, we see this. Let me read. A wise son makes a glad father, but a foolish son is the grief of his mother. Now, I thought first to just teach, you children, you need to be wise so that you can make your fathers glad and not be a grief to your mother. But reverse it. Here's an application. If you're a father and a mother, what is it that you want most for your children? Do you want them to be successful in business and accumulate a lot of stuff and have wealth? Or do you want them to have wisdom? Remember, Solomon, as he's teaching his son through the Proverbs, if you get anything, get this. You can hear it. And what is it that Solomon prayed for? Wisdom. That's what he wanted, and that's the thing to get. And that's what we should want for our children. Heavenly wisdom. The wisdom that comes from God. The wisdom that is in Christ Jesus. That's what we should yearn for in our hearts in relationship to our children. Not so they can go through life with ease and prosperity, but that they would have wisdom. Because as we see in the next, treasures of wickedness profit nothing, but righteousness delivers from death. Here, I'm going to couple the two verses, 2 and 3. The Lord will not allow the righteous soul to famish, but he casts away the desire of the wicked. What is it that it is going to profit you to have all the possessions in the world, but stand before God and watch those riches pass away? What's going to last? Righteousness. Righteousness is what's going to deliver you from death. And that righteousness is found in Christ Jesus. That righteousness is gift. Jesus Christ said, blessed are those who hunger for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. The Lord will not allow the righteous soul to famish. In other words, it's as if God's dispensary of righteousness is open to anyone who wants it. Anyone who hungers after it, they will be satisfied. They'll have it. If you want God's righteousness, it is free and accessible and freely given. But the wicked, what is it that they treasure? What is it that they want? They want to accumulate stuff for themselves. Ultimately, they want themselves. They want, it is like a consuming vat, right? The wicked. Not righteousness. There's some more impressions that I had on that, but I'm going to move on because I want to give opportunity to everyone. Just real quick, one thought. The wicked are in a constant state of unsatisfaction. And I'm not talking about temporal satisfaction. I'm talking about a craving, right? In other words, you drink a glass of water, temporary satisfied. And then what? I need another one. And then another one. And then another one. And another one. There's a sense in which that thirst is satisfied, but is it really? And another one. And another one. And another one. It's not fully satisfied. And then you die. So the very thing that water promises you, which is life, you drinking it, ultimately you're going to die. That water's not going to give me what I need to continue because death is coming. And so there's this constant craving that until you come to Jesus Christ, who said, "Come to me and you will hunger no more. I'm the bread of life." Until you come to Christ, you won't know that peace that the righteous have. Verse 4 and verse 5 together. He who has a slack hand becomes poor, but the hand of the diligent makes rich. He who gathers in summer is a wise son. He who sleeps in harvest is a son who causes shame. Now, one thing I noticed on this, I'm not going to be given every single impression that I have. It would take up all of our time. So I'm going to just give small impressions along the way. One thing that I noticed is that it says in verse 4 at the end, the part B, but the hand of the diligent makes rich. It doesn't say gets rich. Now that I notice is important. In other words, the hand of the diligent, the hand of the righteous one, the righteous person, is not just getting value for himself. In other words, not going to work just to get a paycheck. Okay? But I see makes rich as in making his employer rich, making others who are working with him rich. In other words, there's something about the nature of this diligent person's work that is fruitful, and it's adding value to the environment that he's working in. In other words, it's not just I'm clocking in, getting a paycheck, and just enduring the day. No. The diligent one is seeking ways in which he can provide value to the employer, to those who surround him. And you may not be in a position where you have operational decision making, where you can make big impacts on, people, but you do have a position where you can have some sort of added value that's beyond what's expected of you. Now, I do understand, though, that there are some people who have tons and tons and tons and tons of expectations laid on them, and that I do think is an anomaly. And I don't mean by any means to add any burden on you, but there's a character of righteousness, of the diligent, that is a savor of life, even to your employer, to those you work with. And I would say that focus on the character. Another thought is that the one who gathers in summer is a wise son. Now, summer is hot, right? Summer is, the idea is that going out to do the work, the important work, even when the conditions are not favorable. Going to do the thing that you need and others need, for even if it hurts you, even if it has at a cost to you. Verses 6 and 7. Blessings are on the head of the righteous, but violence covers the mouth of the wicked. The memory of the righteous is blessed, but the name of the wicked will rot. Now, the head of the righteous here, I believe, is an expression that is describing a person's life. There's a blessing on one's life that is evident to others. It's on the head. Others can see it. And it's talking about reputation. And so the memory of the righteous is blessed, the name of the wicked will rot. And you know those that when you're around them, you start to become more like them in a good way. Like you're affected by the nature of their goodness. And when you think of them, you get happy thoughts, right? There's blessedness and association to thoughts of them. And then there's those that it's just like a bad smell that you want to get rid of, right? A name, Hitler, right? Immediately there's a repulsion. Verse 8, the wise in heart will receive commands, but a prating fool will fall. A prating fool, prating means constant babbling, like constantly going and going and going. In other words, the wise in heart have a quietness about them. There's a stillness and receptivity to them, that they're attentive, they're careful, they're receiving, they're sensitive. Whereas a prating fool that keeps going and going and going, there's no receptivity at all to God's wisdom, will fall. Verse 9. He who walks with integrity walks securely, but he who perverts his ways will become known. There is for the one who upholds their integrity in relationship to God, there is a solace, a peace, internal peace that one has, that no one can touch. But if you keep a secret inside of you that you do not share with others, that should be shared, it rots inside of you. And it will become known. If not in this life, in the day of judgment, it will become known. And I do want to add a thought on this, that when it says, he who walks with integrity walks securely, it doesn't mean that you won't incur anxieties and strife and struggles and hardship. You look at Job, a man who kept his integrity. but yet still faced accusations from his friends about sin. And yet, in no ways did he sin. Or you look at David, a man who kept his integrity but yet was pursued and worried about the next day, the next meal. So just because you keep your integrity, in fact, often because you keep your integrity in this world, the one who seeks to be godly is what? The one who will be, if anyone who seeks to be godly in this life will be persecuted, right? So it says walk securely, but I see that more in the sense of relationship with God. I see that more in the sense of the Lord knows. The Lord knows. And there's a peace. And the fact that those who walk in integrity know that they will be vindicated in the day of judgment. Verse 10. He who winks with the eye causes trouble, but a prating fool will fall. You're starting to see repetition here. Prating fool will fall. Prating fool will fall. I'm not sure why the repetition. I don't have that one. Maybe y'all do. But one thing I do know is that those who usually wink, it's usually an invitation into their own deceitfulness. When somebody winks at you, they're saying one thing and they're letting you know they mean another thing. It's like an invitation. So be careful. People who do that cause trouble. They say one thing and then mean another. The mouth of the righteous is a well of life. Now, verses 11 through 14 are more on speech and words of the righteous and the wicked. The mouth of the righteous is a well of life. In Proverbs 18, it says that the power of life and death are in the tongue. You either use your words to build up or destroy. There is no neutral ground there. Whenever you speak, you are doing one of two things. You're either adding goodness and building up, loving, or you are hating, which verse 12 I think is, because it's sandwiched in between these verses, I think it's talking about your speech. Hatred stirs up strife. What are you doing with your words when your words are causing turmoil among people? Are you hating or are you loving? Wisdom is found on the lips of him who has understanding, but a rod is for the back of him who is devoid of understanding. This one impression that's left on me is with regard to the rod is for the back of him. It's talking about motivation. What are you motivated by? Are you motivated by a whip? Do you come to the scriptures and it's like, okay, which sin do I need to kill today? Right? I need to be convicted. I need to be convicted of something. There is place for that. But if you're wise and grow in your understanding and knowledge, there's an effect on the heart that you, as we saw in the beginning of this lesson, you desire the good. You hate that which is wicked. When knowledge is wise people store up knowledge, but the mouth of the foolish is near destruction. Jesus Christ said, it is out of the abundance of the heart that the mouth speaks. What is it that you're storing up inside? A rich man's wealth is a strong city. The destruction of the poor is their poverty. I don't think that this is actually saying one is good or bad. I actually am inclined to think that what this is saying, that usually a rich man's wealth, that's their sanctuary. You take away their wealth, what of them? Or usually, the poor, the fact that they're in poverty, that is their demise, that they're in poverty. But Paul, the apostle, said, whether I am abased or abound, right? Y'all remember the rest of the verse? I'm content. That's right. The rich man's wealth verse 6, last verse, and I'm just going to quickly leave it open. The labor of the righteous leads to life, the wages of the wicked to sin. I'll leave out my last thoughts on that. Does anyone have any thoughts? Sorry to end abruptly. No? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pray. All right, Father, you are all wise and